The ever-so-legendary Final Fantasy VII is a JRPG developed for the PlayStation 1 in 1997, and is considered to be one of the best RPGs, if not the best game ever made. Compared to previous Final Fantasy games, it was far more mature with its darker themes and more serious characters. Since it was the first Final Fantasy game in 3D, it hasn't aged well graphically. However, that doesn't discount its better aspects, like the gameplay, story, and music, especially the music. Like seriously, the opening theme of this game's first few notes are instantly recognizable by anyone who has played the game. All this proves that the game has merit, but that probably isn't enough for most people, so I'm going to have to go into more detail. So grab your snacks, grab your Buster Sword, and listen as I tell you about the amazing story that Final Fantasy VII truly is. After dropping an info dump on you, of course, because what videos can do without an info dump, right guys? As I said before, Final Fantasy VII came out in 1997 for the original PlayStation, but was also re-released for the PC in 1998, PlayStation 3 and Portable in 2009, Steam in 2013, iOS and PlayStation 4 in 2015, Android in 2016, and finally the Xbox One and Nintendo Switch in March of 2019. It's also featured on the PlayStation Classic in 2018, but we don't talk about that colossal failure, right guys? The game was received very well at launch, and fans cheered and screamed every time a port was announced. These ports usually came with a few enhancements, like updated graphics and no random encounter modes. I personally played the original on PlayStation 1, as I have all three of the original discs in the basement next to my copy of Final Fantasy VIII and Frogger. However, the game was considered good enough to have a remake put into production, with trailers that made everyone simultaneously scream and wet their pants. And they buggered off for a few years because who cares about the fans who literally drink poison for the chance to play this dumb thing? It's not like they're your loyal customers or anything, you filthy nostalgia goblin. Anyways, it's time for the most negative part of the video, the graphics. It's obviously a product of its time, as most 3D games in that era really do not hold up today. Heck, even games in the PlayStation 2 era don't hold up well in some cases. That being said, the cutscenes look pretty good for a PlayStation game, and the character designs are all great, especially Vincent, Cloud, and Aerith. The UI design of the game mirrors the design of Final Fantasy VI's pretty well, but with the default color being blue with a gradient, and being able to swap colors whenever you want. I'm honestly grasping at straws here because there isn't much to talk about here besides it hasn't aged well blah 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 blah. On new platforms, it's a lot better. Like it goes from original to you go away, to whoa, to whoa. The music in this game is probably one of its stronger aspects that really helped to make it famous in the first place. With classics like Those Who Fight, Genova, Aerith's theme, the opening theme, and One Winged Angel, it's not very hard to see why. It definitely deserves to be up there with Final Fantasy V, 8, 6, 10, and the whole 13 trilogy. Here are the songs that I think define Final Fantasy VII. I know that I've been essentially kissing the game's ass since the video started, but hey, the game's pretty good, at least to me. That's mostly because my favorite part of the game is the story, because it's good. Very good. The game stars Cloud Strife, a mercenary who used to be a member of Soldier, a well-respected military group. He starts out the game working for Avalanche, who are, to put it lightly, warriors of justice. Cloud does a couple of jobs for Avalanche, and then meets Aerith, a flower merchant with a few secrets of her own. He'll also meet Emo Dog, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, the Sexy One, Tyrone, Jailbait, the Chainsmoker, the Hoe, and that one kid who unplugs your controller whenever you're about to win a game of Mario Kart. Anyways, Cloud and his team eventually attack the headquarters of Shinra, the company which wants to extract the life force of the world to make a quick buck, which sounds a lot like real life to be honest. After a little bit of horror, our heroes escape the city of Midgar and enter the open world of Gaia in search of the cause of the aforementioned horror. It's an epic journey that spanned over the course of 3 discs, at least on the PlayStation 1 version anyway. Just the story alone makes it worth a playthrough, but they made the wise decision of having good gameplay as well. The gameplay segment here will be split into 3 parts: the combat, the open world and whatever crap you can do in it, and finally the deeper aspects of it like side content and such. And now that I've given you a briefing, let's ride this train straight into weeboo hell. Woohoo! The basic combat of this game is your classic turn-based system, as in I hit you and then you snap my skinny neck. The turns themselves follow the ATB system, aka the active time battle system. Essentially, a turn is gained when your ATB gauge fills up completely. and time does not stop when your turn comes up. This means that if you just sit on your button and wait, the enemy will eventually kill you without hesitation. There is a button that pauses the game completely so you can think for a minute, but that's about it. The other big aspect of the battle system is the Materia system. With the exception of the attack and item commands, every selectable command in your battle menu is being held hostage by the system. This includes magic, summons, and stealing. But there are also some special commands like enemy skills, W items, morph, deathblow, sense, throw, and mine. In the Final Fantasy VII, you can only place materia into weapons and armor. Some of these slots are linked as you have probably noticed. This means that the materia you place in these two slots can affect one another. For example, if you place a healing spell like Cure in one slot, you could place an all materia in the slot next to it, which would make Cure heal everybody instead of one person. However, materia has to be leveled to be fully effective. Materia experience is gained the exact same way as normal experience, which is through winning battles. You just need to have it equipped and ba-bam, it's gaining experience. It can take a long time to level up completely depending on the materia. This can be sped up through double or triple growth equipment, which multiplies your experience by 2 and 3 respectively. So if that all materia from earlier was, say, level 3, then it'd heal your entire party 3 separate times instead of just once. Don't worry though, all your materia recharges fully after battles. Another thing to keep in mind is that your materia can increase and decrease certain stats. An example would be having a Cure spell equipped, which increases your magic points but decreases your health. The stat change may not seem like much at first, but once you get further into the game, you'll start to notice that materia can tear off hundreds and maybe even 1,000 of your HP. The final thing to mention about materia is the socket types that aren't the linked ones. The first is the normal ones, which can hold and level up materia as you do. The other type is the non-growth ones, which don't have the tiny dot in the center that normal sockets do. These ones obviously do not grow materia, so it is best reserved for your max level stuff. If you want something that explains this better, use the link in the description below, because I haven't exactly studied the game for years like a scientist. I know this stuff seems like information overload, but you don't want it to be placing fresh materia into the non-growth sockets. And suddenly an hour later, you realize you haven't even gained any experience at all, and you'll get frustrated and you'll do something like this. Next, we have the open world, which surprisingly has more stuff than just random encounters and scenery in it. The first thing you can do out of the gate that isn't stupid or required is the Fort Condor side missions. These allow you to invest a gale into resources that you can then use for a collection of strategy-type battles that slowly become accessible over the course of the main story. They can be good fun if you need a break from the plot, plus they can give you some pretty cool items. The second thing you should check out is the Gold Saucer once you gain full access to it. You can play through many different minigames, a couple of which I will mention here. The first minigame worth checking out is the Chocobo Racing, which can be pretty fun once you get going. You can also get one of the best summons in the entire game if you have infinite patience, but as far as I know, only 7.96482% of the population on this planet has that kind of determination. Another cool minigame is the Battle Square, which lets you fight enemies like normal, but after each wave is destroyed, a special attribute is attached to you, whether it be a normal stats effect, or losing all your items to the rest of the fights. Besides Fort Condor and the Golden Saucer, you can also fight a couple of super bosses at the end of the game and maybe find your ultimate weapons. You could also get your level 4 limit breaks, which I forgot to talk about. I guess I should talk about limit breaks then real quick. Welcome to Limit Breaks with Axemmela. Today we're going to talk about the various limit breaks of Final Fantasy VII, starting with how to activate them. First of all, they are your ultimate attacks. Second of all, you have to fill your limit gauge by taking enough damage. Third, it will replace your attack command with the limit one, which lets you pick between 1 and 2 limit breaks depending on the amount of progress you have made through unlocking each of the 4 levels' limits. However, they carry over from battle to battle, so you can avoid using them if you want to save them for bosses. Each new limit break is gained via using them and killing enemies, except for the final one. These can only be gained through questlines, except for Kate Sith because they know you don't care about him very much. The final thing I have to say about limit breaks is that when Vincent's limit gauge is full, you should save it for a boss fight and make it a last resort, because you can't control him until he dies, the enemy dies. You have been warned. And now it's time for my excess ramblings about things and stuff. Let's-a go! Don't be afraid to look up a game fact or a guide if you get stuck, because it isn't a crime and you shouldn't feel bad about it. Especially since it's a game from the PlayStation 1, and guiding people well wasn't a strong suit of most RPGs back then. If you want to reduce incoming damage for a character, place them in the back row. This reduces incoming damage by 50%, but also reduces damage you do by 50%. If you have a character with a ranged weapon, it'll negate the 50% damage decrease on your part, but not the enemy's. Be sure to go after the 2 optional party members, Yuffie and Vincent, as they are both great characters in both gameplay and story. There are guides on the internet for obtaining them, and they are well worth the effort. You'll have to grind at some point in the game, but don't try to overlevel unless you hit a roadblock that you can't get past without spamming limit breaks and using good materia. This game can be very challenging at times, so be sure to exploit enemy attack patterns and weaknesses as much as possible. The enemy skill materia is a great way to make the game a bit easier, as you can gain powerful abilities like White Wind and Big Guard. Elemental resistance is important for a couple of fights as well. There is usually a button you can press that shows you where the exit is for the area you are currently in, and I recommend turning it on if you get lost and can't escape. It also puts an arrow over top of your character to show where they are, just in case you lose sight of them. I don't know how you could lose sight of him when he has bright blonde hair, but hey, it's the thought that counts. Never throw away materia, even if it is no longer gaining experience, because it will always be useful. Make use of status effects, especially positive ones like haste and reflect, as they are complete game changers in most scenarios. The steal materia is very good, so you should spam it when the enemy isn't kicking your butt to get the things that really make a difference. Explore areas thoroughly, or you'll miss out on some good items as well as some missables. And finally, save often, because there is no autosave, and always make sure to heal up after every battle, so you don't smash your controller when you inevitably do something stupid. Final Fantasy VII is a great game that is definitely worthy of being part of the Squaresoft PlayStation 1 goldmine. Among all the classics that were released back then, this one is brought up time and time again, and is one people talk about the most. And why wouldn't you, with its great story, music, and gameplay? It is a shame that it overshadowed a lot of other games in the PlayStation, but media like this is often called good for a reason, so it isn't a surprise that it's getting a remake. Plus it spawned a whole bunch of side games that are hit or miss. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video and that you share the video with your friends and maybe even subscribe. This has been Axemmela. Goodbye!